Welcome everyone, and thank you for watching this talk in which I will present the outcomes of the ISSA project. So for a start, I would like to make just a few observations that initially motivated this work. So we all witnessed the fact that the articles are being published ever faster in journals and conferences and publication repos like arXiv, such that it's quite difficult to keep up and find the articles that are really relevant for our own research and make sense of all this mass of articles. And in this landscape, scientific archives have a very specific role to play, in particular open archives that are the archives that favor open access to the publications. But the issue is that those archives usually come with services that have quite some limitations. First of all, the search services are string-based, which fail to grab the semantic relationships between the articles, and they have they're often based sometimes on keywords, but those are often quite too general to be of any help when you're doing some search. So the conclusion is that we need some smarter services to help us do some search and leverage this whole mass of knowledge that is represented by the scientific archives. So that's the goal of the ISSA project, in which we propose a solution to optimize bibliographic search in an open scientific archive. We want to do that in a generic manner that is independent of any research topic of community. It needs to be reusable. That is, we could transfer this solution to other archive systems using different technologies with relatively low costs. So how we do that? Well, the approach is pretty simple. Basically, what we want to do is to extract rich metadata from the publications, turn those metadata into an index that we can publish on the web in the form of an RDF knowledge graph, and then provide some tools and services that are able to exploit this whole index. And we want to do that with a few guiding principles. The first one being that we want to rely on existing vocabularies, but like common vocabularies, but we want also to allow a community to leverage their own domain-specific vocabularies. The approach needs also to be multilingual. The reason is that many archives contain articles in multiple languages. And finally, we want to have a solution that is based on robust and production-ready software and tools. So let's dig into the different step of the core of this solution, which is what we call the ISSA pipeline. So in our case, we start from an open archive, which is Agritrop. It's an institutional archive of 12,000 full-text open access articles. And in the first step, we basically just retrieve the metadata. We do that using the UA-PMH protocol, which fortunately enough is implemented by lots of archives and libraries and harvested by aggregators. And once we've done that, we can translate those metadata into an RDF representation with standard vocabularies. Next thing, we will download PDFs and extract the full text using a tool called Grobid. And actually, that's when the fancy stuff can start. So in this next step, we will have two types of processing. The first one will be the indexing of the articles, and the second one, the extraction and linking of named entities. So in the indexing, thematic and geographic indexing, what we want to do is to figure out for each article the most relevant terms that describe the article as a whole. So we use the ANIF framework to do that, which was developed by the National Library of Finland. So the whole approach is as follows. First, you choose a target vocabulary. In our case, this is agrovoc, which is a thesaurus of agronomy and agriculture. And the reason is that the articles in Agritrop, in the archive we are working with, has already been indexed by people, documentalists, using that specific vocabulary. Second thing, you prepare the training corpus, so that consists of the whole structured text that we have extracted and the set of descriptors that have been assigned by documentalists. Then you try to figure out the best model that will learn this annotation of your text. And then in the end, if everything works fine, you get a trained model that is able to predict based on the text of an article, it is able to predict the best descriptors, that is, those that most relevantly describe the article. The second step is the named entities extraction and linking. So it's quite well known in the community, I think. We use entity fishing that disambiguates the entities with Wikidata. And from there, we do a further processing to get geonamed entities. Then DBpedia Spotlight, which links the named entities with DBpedia. And again, DBpedia Spotlight is definitely not the most up-to-date model for named entities extraction and disambiguation, but it's a production class software. And the last one is AgroVox. So in this case, this is the domain-specific vocabulary that is in relationship with the concerns of the community, that is the Agritrop archive. And here we used a dictionary-based approach with the PyCleanRec library. So in the end, once we have done those processings, we have a set of thematic and geographic indexing and named entities, and we translate all of that into an RDF representation using the web annotation ontology. And all of that gets into our triple store, which is exposed on the web. And it's now a public endpoint on which we can rely to go to the next step, which can be, say, now the fancy stuff, where we can start to mine and visualize the data of the index, of the semantic index. So we have 3 interfaces as of now. I'll show only 2 of them, which are the most interesting. The first one is the descriptors, about dealing with descriptors association rules. So remember, the descriptors are the result of the indexing step. So technically, they are the main topics of an article. And the association rule is something that says, for instance, if an article mentions a topic A is the antecedent of the rule, then it is very likely to mention a topic B, which is the consequent of the rule, with a certain probability. So let's take an example. Here in that case, I use the RViz visualization and graphic interface to look for rules that mention climate change mitigation as an antecedent. And in the middle, you can see those diamond shapes that represent the different rules that involve, indeed, that specific concept. So now I can fly over one of those rules, and I can see that this specific one involves as an antecedent climate change mitigation and tropical forests. And it means that the papers who mention those concepts very likely will mention carbon sequestration as a consequent. So you can get the list of publications that match this rule. And overall, this tool is very much suited for the discovery of associations and possibly rules that you may not expect. That is something that may not be obvious. So in some way, we can think that it spurs a certain serendipity in the search. The next tool is meant to explore and navigate through the archive by means of networks of entities. Entities can be articles, editors, research topics, institutions, any kind of thing. And the tool is basically configured with predefined Sparkle queries whose results are going to be visualized as graphs and allow further browsing through the database. So here is an example. We have a pre-configured Sparkle query that allows to search the articles that mention a certain descriptor and any other descriptor. So in this case, I want to find all the articles that mention health or any of its subconcepts. This part of Thesaurus comes from AgroVoc. And here is the first result. So I have this graph where green dots are the health or health subconcepts. And all the orange dots are any other concept. So I can fly over any of those dots. And for instance, in that case, I fly over the environmental impact concept. Then I can open a subsequent view, which is in this case, the ergocentric view. So I center the view on this environmental impact concept, and I can see how it is related to the health sub-concepts. The length of that bar over there gives you an idea of the amount of articles that do match this co-occurrence. So from there, I can ask to get the list of publications that co-mention environmental impact and public health. I can get the distribution of these publications throughout the years, and I can see here the navigation path that I have used so far, and I can go back and forth and so on. So that tool is extremely powerful because starting with just a Sparkle query, you can basically reconfigure the whole thing without changing the tool and explore different types of networks. A network of articles with co-authors, a network of authors with co-publications, a network of institutions that do deal with the same research topics, and so on and so on. So it's kind of limitless. So if I come to a quick summary, what we have developed so far is a pipeline. It's applied to the Agritrop archive, but it is ready to transfer to other archives with, we believe, quite a limited amount of work. The code and documentation is under open licenses, and we have based our deployment on open source robust tools that are easily deployed. We have favored Docker containers and the Docker technology to make it as simple as possible. And the whole pipeline is extensible with new steps. The visualization tools that have just shown RFs and LDVs are provided with the whole solution, and they are very flexible. And we have successfully applied this whole pipeline to the Agritrop archive that contains 12,000 open access articles. Now, what are the perspectives? So the first thing is that CIRAD, which is the institution that maintains Agritrop, this archive, is willing to deploy ISSA in production for all the users of Agritrop. So that's a pretty good sign that we are on the good track. Second thing, we have an ISSA 2 project that is to start in next November. And the goal here is to exploit and expand the results that we had so far in ISSA. In terms of extracting new knowledge, I think of extracting relationships between named entities, about disambiguating authors and linking them to third-party databases, dealing with cross-references between articles, and so on. We also intend to broaden the service offering of ISSA. In particular, we would like to implement real semantic search interface, but that definitely requires quite some interaction for the users, with the users, because you cannot develop something just like that hoping they will like it. You need to have a real feedback from the users. And in the end, we also want to explore the indexing in a non-supervised manner, because not all the archives have a annotation of the articles with these descriptors. We intend also to improve a little bit quality metrics, which is quite a specific and difficult topic, in fact, and extend the proof of concept to a new archive, which is HAL. HAL is the main French archive for publications. And thank you for your attention, and I would like to take questions if you have any. Thank you very much.